As you might expect from that introduction, I have a somewhat unusual job. My work focuses on understanding the choices of the past and the present, and seeing how these in turn create the future, and to identify and explain the kinds of decisions that we make today that can lead us to a better tomorrow. It's the kind of job that requires that I study just about everything, including bioscience, anthropology, technologies of all kinds, and much more. And a very important part of my job is to try to uncover the ways in which different forces combine to challenge our civilization.
Следующий слайд, пожалуйста.
Okay, next slide then. This isn't working. Hey, there we go. It's magic. Over the past decade, it's become increasingly clear that the greatest risk to humanity is coming from global environmental disruption. The enormous damage that we've inflicted upon our climate, our water supplies, our topsoil, our oceans, is the unintended consequence of simple, reasonable choices we've made over past decades and centuries. That is, the crisis in global sustainability we face today didn't just happen out of nowhere or because of malice. It happened because of the nature of our technological, economic, and social context. As a consequence, any plan to deal with the situation over the next few decades must take into account how that technological, economic, and social context will change. It's clear that fixing the damage is going to require us to make some very difficult choices in the years to come. Understanding what our choices will be and being able to think clearly and carefully about the path forward. If we make the wrong choices, or if we just wait until it's too late, we'll be putting hundreds of millions of lives at risk around the world. And to be clear, we won't be able to resolve the numerous other problems out there we face as a planet if we don't deal with this one. So when we talk about sustainable development, please understand that I see this as a critical part of how we face a significant global crisis, and is something that fits into a larger system of how we, as a civilization, respond to techno-social evolution. I live near San Francisco, in California. Some of you may recall that there was a big earthquake out there almost 25 years ago. It turns out that one of the bridges that crosses San Francisco Bay was damaged in that quake, and a decision was eventually made to replace it. For the last 5 years, workers have been building a new bridge right alongside the old one. Whenever I drive into San Francisco, I can see the new bridge. It's going to be pretty beautiful. But it's not yet finished. And that means that as my eye follows the path of the new bridge, the roadway suddenly stops, leaving a very large drop into the cold waters of the bay. The startling thing is, because of the way the bridge curves, that opening isn't visible until you're right next to it. When I was told the name of this panel, my mind wandered back to the image of the new bridge suddenly stopping in a big gap. When we think of a green bridge, does it reach all the way across? Or does it have a surprise waiting for us when we think we're almost there? The world is shifting beneath our feet in ways that make even that San Francisco earthquake of 25 years ago seem tiny in comparison. Green bridges that are built to meet the needs of 2012 will be simply unable to meet the demands of the next decade and beyond. Even worse would be development plans that are based on the expectations of the previous century, and especially big risks for nations and regions with economies based on extraction of raw materials. The more that economic and social development relies on the energy and material resources that dominated the 20th century, the harder it can be to recognize and adapt to the changes underway in the 21st. So what I want to do over the next few minutes is to give you a look at some of the forces that I consider to be of critical importance for understanding the next 20 years. Forces that will shape the decisions we make about sustainable development. You'll note that none of them is explicitly about environment or energy. And that's because as we look at the coming years, everything will be about environment and energy. The The first of these is network connectivity and information sharing, the rapidly growing ability of people around the world to link to each other, whether via mobile phone or internet. Social networking platforms like Facebook or China's Weibo are just beginning. What's emerging is a way of sharing ideas and collaborating on projects that's already starting to have real economic, and as we saw for the past year or so, political impacts. Facebook and Twitter didn't cause the Arab Spring uprisings, but they certainly serve as accelerators and enablers. Open, collaborative projects are rapidly becoming real competitors to established services. The Open Maps initiative, for example, offers a better, often more accurate set of maps than those shown by Google. Websites like HealthMap, shown here, pull in public data from around the world to create a real-time display of disease outbreaks. Now, a similar project in Canada a few years ago actually identified the emergence of SARS around before the World Health Organization, using only publicly available news reports. And with billions of camera phones out there, I think almost everyone here has one, as well as sensor technologies becoming cheap and tiny, we're heading quickly into a world where it's easy to find out what's going on around you, with information often provided by unofficial sources. The combination of collaborative networks and information transparency is a powerful one. Most obviously, it puts abundant information at everyone's fingertips, but it also increases the transparency of societies, making it harder to hide problems. But because this transparency may sometimes run counter to the desires of established companies and governments, there will be a real temptation to crack down and stop the spread of these technologies. The loss of control that these technologies enable is quite profound and very uncomfortable for institutions accustomed to having strict rule over access to information. This will be a real dilemma for many societies over the next couple of decades. Technologies and practices that offer enormous opportunities for innovation and economic strength also have a real potential to undermine authority. Second is the explosive growth of bioengineering technologies, which have enormous potential as both disruption and adaptation. Of particular interest is synthetic biology, which includes the creation of novel species and the ability to build organisms in Lego-like modules, piece by piece. We're already seeing the importance of this research in energy applications as well as medicine. And this isn't just theoretical for many people. I can stand here, metaphorically stand here before you because of a biotech drug that controls my arthritis. Biotechnology has been around for a while, but many people may not be aware of how big it's becoming in the developing world. Biotech and its related fields don't require the kind of energy and production infrastructure needed by 20th century heavy industries. The most important condition for the rise of a useful bioindustry is the presence of functional, independent universities. Third is the emergence of new technologies of manufacturing. Now, I have to stress that these technologies are still very new and have yet to see their full impact, but it's already clear that these new manufacturing methods will bring big changes to the global economy. Now, how many of you here have heard of 3D printing? A couple of you. For those of you who haven't, it's a manufacturing process that builds physical goods using a system that's very much like an inkjet printer, except rather than ink, these spray out plastic layer by layer. Commercial 3D printers, the red one that you see there, these cost tens of thousands of dollars, but they now face competition from open source printers that may not be as pretty, the one on the upper right, but they only cost a few $100s. The technologies are moving rapidly and is already advanced enough that some people are using it to print out unmanned aircraft. Other people are using it to build robot components and furniture and shoes. Over the next decade, the kinds of things that people can make and the ease with which they can do it will grow very quickly. One study even argued that the kinds of 3D printing available over the next few years will make it possible to print out quickly and cheaply just about any single consumer product. So rather than having millions of a given object made in Vietnam or China and shipped to big stores around the world, the object would be a piece of software sent to a printer on your desk or in a neighborhood shop. Think for a moment about what that means to global trade or shipping development. And there are already early designs for printers that operate at the molecular scale, which would make it possible to print out just about anything, Any plans for development that don't take these kinds of technologies and behaviors into account are liable to fail in surprising ways. A plan for sustainability that goes beyond grand postures and eloquent phrases has to be connected to the context in which it will be implemented. But there's an unfortunate tendency in the worlds of environmental politics and resource economics to assume that conditions that have held true for decades will remain the same for decades hence. It's a healthy caution, but it has the potential to blind us when major techno-social earthquakes are about to hit. We have to recognize that these forces put together make large-scale, fundamental economic, social, and political transformation almost inevitable. With climate and the environment, we have something pushing us to change. If we continue on our current path, everybody suffers. With networks and information sharing, we have a growing generation of people able to work together in new ways to make change happen. We have energy that need a purpose. With synthetic bio and other emerging biotechnologies, we have remarkable new tools to transform our environment and even ourselves. And with 3D printing, we have the potential for a new engine of economic growth, one that will accelerate as these systems become more inexpensive and widespread. Each of these developments has a technological face, but is ultimately a socially driven system, strengthened by collaboration and transparency. This means that a